Welcome to Preservation Oaks, the podcast where we invite you to step away from the bustle of everyday life. Settle in and relax, and take a moment to leave the familiar behind as we explore the hidden gems of America that preserve our cultural past. We call them our Preservation Oaks, and with each episode, we'll journey to a different corner of the country, where we'll discover the unique histories, landscapes, and communities that make up our nation. We'll visit with local museums, historical, and genealogical societies. They are the stewards of these stories. They preserve the legacy of each place like precious pieces of fabric in a quilt that binds the freedom-loving, hard-working people in this country together. So, slow down, grab a beverage, open your mind, and let us take you on a tour of the fascinating histories and heartfelt traditions that lie just beyond the horizon. This is Preservation Oaks, where every story is a stitch in the fabric of our shared culture. Now, join our host, Sean Radcliff, as he uncovers another thread in the tapestry of America's heritage and what it takes to preserve it.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Preservation Oaks Podcast, the program where we celebrate the people and organizations working hard to preserve our nation's history, heritage, and culture. I'm your host, Sean Radcliff, coming to you from both modern and historic Salt Lake City. I love genealogical societies and the work they do, and today we're shining a spotlight on the Colorado Genealogical Society based in Denver, Colorado. This is a statewide organization that's been around since 1924, and it's played a vital role in supporting family historians and genealogists across the region. What makes this story even more fascinating is their long-standing partnership with the Denver Public Library. Together, they've helped build one of the top 10 genealogical libraries in the country. We'll explore how that partnership works, the amazing resources available, and hear some of the surprising and even funny stories that have come out of their work. So stick with us. I promise this episode is going to be informative, inspiring, and maybe even a little entertaining along the way. By the way, our main platform is preservationoaks.podbean.com, but you can find us on nearly all podcast platforms like Rumble, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. So wherever you listen to the program, I appreciate it very much when you like, comment, follow, or subscribe. And if you're interested in being a guest on our program, or if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email us at preservationoaks@gmail.com. A big shout out to all our fantastic supporters. Your efforts in spreading the word about our program are invaluable. Thanks to you, more people are discovering the incredible heroes behind Preservation Oaks. These are the people dedicating their lives to preserving our shared history, and your support helps bring their stories to the forefront. You rock. Hey, in genealogy news, American Ancestors, that's AmericanAncestors.org, has launched a groundbreaking initiative called 10 Million Names. This collaborative project brings together genealogists, cultural organizations, and community-based family historians with one mission: to recover and preserve the names and life stories of the estimated 10 million men, women, and children of African descent who were enslaved in the lands that would become the United States between the 1500s and 1865. The project seeks to amplify centuries of family stories, connect researchers and data partners with descendants searching for answers, and expand public access to records about enslaved African Americans. You can learn more, explore resources, or even get involved by visiting the number 10millionnames.org. All right, let me give you a sneak peek about the next episode of Preservation Oaks. And trust me, you won't want to miss this one. We'll be sitting down with Miss Heather Brophy, director of the Creed Underground Mining Museum and Community Center in Creed, Colorado. Back in the 1990s, the Creed community came together and did something truly extraordinary. They built an entire museum and community center completely underground. In our conversation, Heather will share just how deep the museum goes the many ways it serves the community, and most importantly, how you can plan a visit to experience it for yourself. It's a one-of-a-kind story of history, ingenuity, and community spirit. And we can't wait to share it with you. And now let me turn it over to Muriel, who will give us a short biography of today's guests.
Right. Roberta Bobbi King is the president of the Colorado Genealogical Society and a seasoned genealogist with more than 2 decades of service to the community. Born and raised in Nebraska, where 3 of her great-grandfathers were homesteaders on the edge of the Sandhills, Bobbi now makes her home in Lakewood, Colorado. Her speciality is homestead records and the history of Western settlement. She is a prolific author of several books, which are available wherever books may be purchased. Her titles include Bylaws Workbook, a handbook for new and established societies, 2nd edition. The descendant families of Frederick, Fritz, and Marion Maron Heitrich, Heitrecks of the United States, Heitrich Family Memories, The Homestead Papers of Enos A. Mills, The Heitrecks of Holt County, Nebraska, Volume 1 and 2, The Homestead Papers of Thomas H. Hutton, Africa, Mission Work in Sierra Leone, West Africa, The Homestead Papers of John E. Everett, and finally, also, Research in Nebraska, part of the National Genealogical Society's Research in the States series, which was later updated and published in the National Genealogical Society Quarterly. Her writing has also appeared in NGS Magazine and FGS Forum, and she created the descriptions for the Homestead Records collection at footnote.com. She frequently lectures on homestead laws, the public land survey system, and the records at the National Archives. She also attended the National Institute of Genealogical Research in 2010. In addition to her research and writing, Bobbi has been a tireless leader and volunteer. She has served as bylaws reviewer for the National Genealogical Society, led both the Colorado Council of Genealogical Societies and the Colorado chapter of the Association of Professional Genealogists, and contributed book reviews to Dick Eastman's online genealogy newsletter. Today, alongside her leadership at CGS, she is compiling her own family histories, digitizing photographs, and preserving legacy materials, ensuring that the past remains accessible for future generations. Now, our next guest, Nancy Dierker, is the founder of Historigen, a mother-daughter genealogy company she launched in 2024 with her daughter Libby Duller. She brings to her work a unique blend of project management, legal research, and technology expertise, built over decades as a certified legal assistant and IT project manager, overseeing multi-million-dollar contracts. Nancy's passion for genealogy evolved from a personal journey into a professional calling. She specializes in DNA research, family history, adoption and unknown parentage, investigative genetic genealogy, and lineage research for society applications. She's known for solving challenging research problems, locating ancestral burial sites, and helping clients bring their ancestors' stories to life. She also serves as newsletter editor for the Colorado Genealogical Society, staying deeply connected to the genealogical community. Nancy lectures regularly, including her recent presentation, Smart Genealogy, using AI to build better locality guides and research questions. Through Historigen, Nancy's mission is to empower clients to connect with their past, preserve family legacies, and carry those stories forward for future generations. Our final guest on our program today is Lucia Mears, who serves as the publicity chair for the Colorado Genealogical Society. A fifth-generation Denver native on her mother's side and third generation on her father's, she brings deep Colorado roots and a passion for ancestry to her work. Lucia's career has spanned the hospitality industry, oil and gas software, where she specialized in land and lease management, and later real estate, where she earned a reputation for stellar customer service, follow-through, and compassion. She is now a trusted real estate consultant, known for her integrity and dedication. Outside of her professional life, Lucia continues to piece together her own family history. She has 2 adult children, 1 grandson, and a love of Colorado's hot springs. All 93 of them, with a personal mission to visit as many as she can. Right, there you are, wonderful guests on our program today. Now, back over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Muriel. And now, welcome to the program, Bobbi, Nancy, and Lucia.
Glad to be here.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. To get us started, can each of you introduce yourselves and maybe tell us how you first got hooked on genealogy?
My name is Roberta, commonly known as Bobbi King. I'm president of the organization. And about 30 years ago, my sister, being the internet aficionado she was back in the day, we were organizing a family reunion, and she sent out invites to anybody who had the same name as ours, to anybody and everybody across the United States. And within a few weeks, letters started pouring in from people we had never met.
Oh.
So I took all the letters, put everything together, and I started researching all these previously unknown cousins and put all the genealogies together and organized everything. And we had a great family reunion. I built some publications for everybody, and I told everybody how they were related to everyone. And what I thought was going to be a 3-week project turned out to be a 30-year plus project. So that's how I got started, and that's how I got hooked.
That is amazing. I don't know what the distribution of the surname King is. Was it King at the time?
No.
Okay.
The surname of my family is Hytrek. It's Hytrek. It comes from Polish, and we think it is of Czech origin, but my ancestors are Polish. And anyone named Hytrek in the United States is related to me. We came from 2 men who immigrated to the United States in the 1880s. So it's a very unusual name, and it kept its spelling throughout the Polish records and the American records. And so it has been an amazingly good name to research.
Yeah, you're lucky. That's very cool. And I've seen that name on your books that you've written.
Oh, correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Very cool.
And of course, the name King is the opposite end of the spectrum. So common, it's a mix.
Nancy, what about your story?
Well, my story started back in the 60s or 70s. One of my father's cousins worked on a family tree that was completely on paper, and she mailed it out to all of her cousins in a notebook, and she had taken the pages and taped them together so that you had to unfold this jack-in-the-box of a family tree in order to see all the work she had done. And instantly I fell in love. It's like reading a roadmap and seeing, first I start with the people I know and then start asking questions about the people I didn't know. I had a great aunt who did something similar for all of her nieces and nephews. And she also, when I was in high school, gifted me the family Bible from the 1860s.
Ooh.
And so having all of those resources it just sort of seemed inevitable that I would have to spend more time understanding all of that and then trying to put it all together digitally. We had a family reunion in 2006, and my daughter and I took all of that information and we put it into a software package so we could print it out and tape it to the wall to share with everyone else. And that pretty much solidified that genealogy was something that we would always have our fingers in.
Well, it's a very cool story. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So fortunately, I inherited a bunch of artifacts from my family that have been carried on from, I guess, generation to generations. I am 3 generations on my father's side, Colorado native. And so with that, they kept a large amount, or as much as they could, of the documents of their businesses, purchasing vehicles. My great uncle, he had an interest in mines and oil and gas, in addition to his companies. And so all of that was retained and kept. And so when my grandparents passed away, my uncle inherited all of those artifacts. And then unfortunately, when he passed away a couple of years ago, I was the lucky receiver of all of those artifacts. So I have one 27-gallon tote full of photo albums, as well as binders where I have put all of those treasures, if you will, into protective covers. And so that I could show them to family members as they come by and whatnot. And also I like to reminisce, I like to go through them. And then I have 2 additional totes full of articles and other items that I can't wait to dive into and, protect them like I have the other items. So I was just kind of made a family historian, and I love that title. I love researching and keeping that legacy going and making sure that younger generations know where they came from.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it?
It is.
Very cool. Nice story. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I'd like to thank you all for sharing that. Let's rewind the clock a bit, back to 1924. The Colorado Genealogical Society has been helping people connect with their family history for over a century. Can you take us back to those early days? Who were the visionaries that founded the society, and how did that important partnership with the Denver Public Library first take shape?
Well, this is Bobbi. The organization was officially organized in 1925, but it had already been organized a year earlier in 1924 by 3 women, Suzette Pfeiffer, Emma Howe, and Matilda Lewis. They put ads and notices into the local Denver newspaper, inviting like-minded researchers and genealogists to come to the Pfeiffer home, and they organized and formed the Colorado Genealogical Society. Dues in the beginning were 75 cents a year, which translates to about $14 today. From 1924 to 1929, they met in members' homes and living rooms. In 1929 through the 1940s, the members met at a local YMCA. After 1948, by which time Denver Public Library had already established a genealogy section, so then the society started meeting at Denver Public Library. In the more modern years of the 70s and 80s, the society has met at various churches. And historically, churches have been welcoming locations for nonprofit groups and organizations. And over the years, we've met at various locations. And in 2015, CGS went back to Denver Public Library as a meeting place on Saturday morning. During COVID, meeting in person broke off, and our meetings went directly to Zoom. We had already been using Zoom as a platform, so this was a transition, but it was a tough transition. But it was done by the CGS administrators And all of our meetings are currently on Zoom, and we're starting to move back into more in-person meetings. At one time, CGS had over 800 members, but that was back in the day when we were the only genealogy society in town. But through the years, lots of CGS members have broken out into other societies here in town, other local societies where members have created their own groups, commonly because of distance, such as in Castle Rock, which is about an hour from here. A computer user group has organized their meetings independently, but that team leader was an original member of CGS. So many offshoot groups have come out of CGS. Currently, we have about 300 individual members. We have about 30 family memberships, and we have about 60 memberships that involve societies, libraries, and institutions. I'd like to talk about some notable CGS presidents. Suzette Pfeiffer was the first president in 1924. One very notable personage in our history is Adelaide French. She holds the distinction of being a CGS president in 4 different decades. She was a president in different years in the 1930s, in the 1940s, in the 1950s, and in the 1960s. And we remember her as an outstanding leader of our group. Another notable CGS president was Quantrill McClung. Indeed, she was a librarian at Denver Public Library for over 30 years. So she brought her genealogy influence into the library environment for building their collections. She was also an author. She published several articles in the quarterly called Governors and Their Wives, Genealogies of Notable Governors of Colorado. Another CGS president was Donna Porter. She went on to become the first certified genealogist in Colorado. A CG, a certified genealogist, is a prestigious honorific, and it takes intense work to build a portfolio for accreditation into the certification group. So Donna Porter was a past president, CGS member, who went on to become one of the first certified genealogists in Colorado. Another president in 1979 was David Vogels, for whom we have an award named, an annual award here in Colorado. He was a CGS president, and he went on to found the Colorado Council of Genealogical Societies, an organization of genealogy societies here in Colorado, which still meets today. He also became president of the national group, the Federation of Genealogical Societies. He led that group as president, and because of that, CGS is a charter member of the Federation of Genealogical Societies. The Federation is no longer functioning. A few years ago, it merged with the National Genealogical Society, which now operates an arm of their society to serve organizations and societies. So many officers and members of CGS did and still came out of CGS and went into the national genealogy boards, became national speakers, officers, authors, and professionals. So we're proud of our group, and we have a colorful history.
Yeah, there's a lot to be proud of. Colorado is very engaged with genealogy. That's great. Since the beginning, too.
I agree, since the beginning.
Wow, amazing. It's amazing to think how an organization that began in the 1920s is still making such an impact today. And that partnership with the Denver Public Library seems like a real cornerstone of your work. Now, I understand that your material donations go directly to the Denver Public Library, and through your book donations fund, you've helped grow their collection into one of the nation's finest. Can you tell us how that collaboration works and what makes the library's genealogy collection so special?
Well, this is Bobbi. From the early years, DPL and CGS have had a remarkably tight relationship. I think this can be credited to the influence of CGS members who had vision and persistence as they went about their duties as DPL librarians. I mentioned Quantrill McClung, who in the 1940s was a librarian and dedicated genealogist. She championed collecting genealogical materials and she authored articles, and her legacy of collections and manuscripts lives on today at DPL. Shirley Sheets was a CGS president, also a librarian a genealogy librarian at Denver Public Library for many years, and her influence added to the collections to their genealogy shelves. Shirley Sheets was the chief editor of our premier volume, the book called Colorado Families, A Territorial Heritage, which we will talk about later. She was chief editor for that project and saw it to its publication. James Kroll, a past CGS president and a current board member, was a founding member of the Computer Interest Group, but he was in a leadership position on staff at the Denver Public Library for many years, where he guided genealogists who served as volunteers and staff at Denver Public Library on the genealogy floor. He guided them to become mentors as they guided researchers who came to the floor and asked their questions. And James was instrumental in them training people, directing them to the resources and offering instructions in methodologies and searching the files at the Denver Public Library. Joanne Clausen was a genealogist and a library who worked at the Denver Public Library, and she quietly built and cataloged, indexed, and organized resources for the genealogy shelves. Her decades of effort curating collections leave a legacy of materials that offer wide accessibility today to families tracing their roots. Of more current, charismatic librarian within the CGS community was James Jeffrey, a Virginian by birth, who came to Colorado, married, and raised his family. And I would call him a genealogy activist, but he was head genealogy librarian at Denver Public Library for so many years. And he spearheaded the Eastern resources collections at Denver Public Library. Mm-hmm. We are a library located in the West in Denver, but we have ample and bountiful Eastern, Midwest genealogy resources on the shelves at DPL. I have Tennessee and Virginia ancestors, and I found boatloads of materials at DPL. Much thanks to James Jeffrey, an Easterner who came west and helped build those Eastern collections. James was also a connector of people. He facilitated that central library location became home to a lot of other genealogy societies' meetings, such as the Swedish Genealogical Society, the Irish Genealogical Society, the WISE group, which is Wales, Ireland, Scotland, England, meeting there on Saturdays. And we all got to know one another. And he connected societies whose Saturday club gatherings built bridges across all of us, combining and learning about our heritages and generations. So just an inexplicable mix over the decades of genealogists who served as librarians at DPL, who influenced the collections, societies meeting at DPL, and the interrelationships and connections that we all made.
Wow. What a fantastic, wonderful legacy. And it's still ongoing today. Building bridges was your comment, and that really is the key, huh?
Yes. And even today, Jamie is a CGS member. She is the genealogy librarian currently at DPL. and she writes articles for our quarterly. She and I email commonly, and she remains an active member of CGS and liaison for DPL.
Wow. I was reading that your group started in 1924, the Colorado Genealogical Society. The library, the Denver Library, started collecting genealogical resources, according to what I was reading, in 1910.
Okay.
So from the very beginning, CGS has been all about collaboration and making resource widely available. And now, folks, I'd like to provide everybody with the contact information for the Colorado Genealogical Society. You can find them on their website at cogensoc.us. That's Colorado Genealogical Society, or cogensoc.us. Their mailing address is P.O. Box 9218, Denver, Colorado, 80209. You can email them at cgscontact@cogensoc, that's cogensoc.us. And you can find them on Facebook at Colorado Genealogical Society. That all sound right, Bobbi?
Yes, that's perfect. So many times when you're online and you email a link such as info at blah, 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 and you never hear back from somebody, our contact person who reads our emails at cgscontact@cogensoc replies in a very timely manner to emails and questions that come into her, which is how you found us, Sean.
Yep, absolutely. And thank you for it. But what I think really brings genealogy to life are the stories that emerge. That's really something that you learn along the way. So I'd love for you to share a couple of success stories, maybe someone who solved a long-standing family mystery or a discovery that connected somebody to Colorado history in an unexpected way. And of course, if you have any funny or quirky family legend moments, we'd love to hear those too. Could you share some of that?
Sean, this is Lucia, and I would like to share my family's story, which is in particular the Allison family, which is on my dad's side of the family.
Okay.
So, and it begins with my great-grandfather, and his name was Frank Allison, who was married to a woman by the name of Athanasia. And that is actually my middle name as well. So that's exciting. Frank was born in Sparta, Greece in 1881, and by the early 1900s, he made his way to Denver. Like many immigrants of that time, he found his footing through hard work. His obituary even tells us that he helped build the Greek Orthodox Church on East Alameda Avenue. But Frank's real mark on Denver was through his candy businesses. He owned a shop at 1001 15th Street, and by the 1920s, it was recognized as one of the largest candy stores in the city. On January 2nd, 1925, the Denver Post reported that Frank gave away 2.5 tons of candy to Denver's children. Could you just imagine being a child, on a cold day, waiting for a nice piece of chocolate candy from a local store? He eventually retired in 1955 at the age of 74, and at the age of 82, he proudly became a citizen of the United States. Right. When he passed in 1970, he left behind not just a family, but a reputation of generosity, community spirit, and a driving force admired by all who came after him. Frank was one of 5 siblings, 4 of which came to Denver specifically to become confectionaries. My great-great-uncle, George Allison, leased candy stores as early as 1900 on Champa Street, and later he expanded to multiple storefronts along Curtis and 15th Streets. By the 1920s, his rent alone was $1,500 a month. I mean, that's just a huge amount at that time. George wasn't just a shop owner. He wrote letters to the U.S. Senate about tariffs on almonds and walnuts, showing how connected he was to national trade issues. He also invested in mining and even bought stock in early wireless phone companies. He clearly had an eye on the future. Another great uncle, his name was John Allison. He ran the Olympia candy store at 912 16th Street, near what's now the Daniels and Fisher Clock Tower. about when that was built, that was the tallest building in the United States. And it's still, you can have panoramic views of all the city and the mountains from the clock tower. He also had locations on 15th and Curtis, but John was different. In 1913, he ran for commissioner of property in Denver. I haven't yet discovered if he won, but it shows he saw himself not only as a businessman, but a potential civic leader. In 1905, John Allison sold his business interest to George for just $2,500 in cash. And if you adjust that for inflation today, that's more than $91,000. Then came the next generation, which is my grandfather. His name was Chris Allison. I called him BB because I couldn't say Papu. And so everybody started to call, all the grandchildren, even my dad, my uncles, we would affectionately call him B. He was Frank's son, and he was born in Colorado in 1921. He was one of 5 children, but the first to firmly establish our branch of family here in Denver, according to the 1930 census, anyhow. He graduated from West High School and completed 1 year of college at CU Boulder before enlisting in the Air Force during World War II. I have his original individual records. He completed 215 hours of pilot time before he went off to fight in the war. And on March 29th, 1944, his plane went down in the North Sea and he was captured. Chris spent months as a prisoner of war in Germany at Stalag Luft I. I think I pronounced that right, anyhow. And he was finally liberated on May 15 of 1945 and later awarded both the Purple Heart and the Air Medal. When the war ended, Chris came back to Denver. He ran multiple businesses, including a nightclub named the Tombstone on East Colfax. Later, its name changed to Going Bananas. I myself have one of the bar stools that was in that nightclub, and I sat on that bar stool through my childhood, and both of my children also were able to enjoy that bar stool. And it is in my will because I want to make sure that it is handed down accurately and not, I don't want anything to happen to that bar stool among all the other things that I have as well. So, he created a full life building a family with my yaya. Her name was Mary Allison. They had 4 boys, and she wasn't Greek, so therefore she was baptized in the Greek church. And I can only imagine that this was encouraged so that she could fully embrace the community. She not only accepted it, but she cherished it, keeping Greek traditions alive in her home and in her heart. Not every Allison story, though, is heroic. My great-great-uncle Gus made the Denver Post on January 5th, 1966, for being arrested in a gambling raid. And according to the 1950 census, he was self-employed at a cigar store. His obituary describes that he was a candy store owner with no mention of this cigar store. So I guess every family has that one guy,
Of course.
And basically, in summary, I would just like to share that Frank came here with nothing and built something sweet for Denver. George expanded and invested, always thinking ahead. John stepped into public life, believing in civic responsibility. Chris fought in the war, survived, and returned home to keep building. He never dwelled on the past. Instead, he embraced life with a giant smile on his face at all times. And Gus, he reminds us that family history isn't always neat and tidy. Sometimes it's messy, and that makes it real. Together, they show an immigrant family can create a legacy that can ripple across generations through community, business, service, and even a bit of scandal. And one last thing that I would like to share is that through my research, I'm able to complete at least 3 first families recognitions on my paternal side and 4 on my maternal side.
Wow.
Not much was talked about my family on the maternal side, but I'm excited to explore what brought them to Denver and why. These connections keep me digging, keep me telling stories, and remind me that our families deserve to be remembered.
Fantastic.
So thank you very much for listening.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for sharing that. Does your family still own candy stores throughout the area?
No, in fact, in an article in 1991, my grandfather's sister, Georgia, she submitted an article to the Rocky Mountain News talking about my great-grandfather and how he was forced to retire at 74 because of big business. That's when Hershey's came, and I think they talked about the 5-cent candy bar, and he just wasn't able to compete with that. So, that's kind of when the small business was taken over by big business.
Yep. Okay.
Well, this is Bobbi, and I just want to comment, Lucia. I love the barstool story. And to have an artifact that you still can look at and touch and feel, that's remarkable. Thank you, Lucia.
You're welcome. And it's absolutely wonderful. I constantly feel their presence. I feel like they guide me. They want to make sure that their stories and their legacies aren't forgotten. And so they're living kind of vicariously through me, and I'm spreading the word.
Well, you're doing a great job. Stories
Thank
like
you.
these are exactly why genealogy has such a pull on people. Well, Team CGS, I think we should take a break for a few minutes.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you. Time to go refill my water bottle.
All right. Listeners, we'll be right back after these important messages about becoming a member of the Colorado Genealogical Society.
Are you curious about where you come from? Wondering who your ancestors were and what stories they left behind? The Colorado Genealogical Society, based in Denver, Colorado, has been helping people just like you discover their roots since 1924. As one of the oldest and most respected genealogical societies in the state, CGS brings together people who share a passion for history, family, and discovery. Membership opens the door to a vibrant community where you'll find educational programs, expert speakers, workshops, and a monthly newsletter filled with tips and resources to guide your research. Whether you're brand new to genealogy or a seasoned researcher, the Colorado Genealogical Society is the perfect place to connect, learn, and grow. You'll gain access to knowledge, tools, and a supportive network that makes family history both rewarding and fun. And membership isn't just about learning, it's about belonging. You'll meet others who share your curiosity, collaborate on research, and contribute to preserving the stories that make up our collective heritage.
Membership in the Colorado Genealogical Society connects you with a community passionate about family history while giving you access to a wealth of resources. You'll enjoy a quarterly subscription to the Colorado Genealogist, a digital newsletter, videos and handouts from expert programs, and exclusive databases covering early Colorado births, pioneer obituaries, cemetery records, church records, and more. Annual dues are just $25 for individuals, $30 for families, and $30 for institutions. Join today at cogensoc.us or by email at cgscontact@cogensoc.us or write to our P.O. Box at 9218 Denver, Colorado 80209-0218 and start discovering your past with the support of a welcoming genealogy community.
The Colorado Genealogical Society, helping you uncover the past to inspire the future.
If we had preservation oaks in World War II, the saying would be keep calm and listen on.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, this being Halloween, I'd like to tell you a ghost story. The story of Edgar the Gloomy Ghost. Edgar, it seems, was very fond of nice desserts at dinner. But his wife, Phyllis the Phantom, kept serving him just ordinary desserts. As a result, Edgar went around moaning and groaning like this. Ooh, ooh. Then one day, Edgar's wife bought some Jell-O vanilla pudding at the ghostery store. And now Edgar is just as cheerful as can be. No longer does he go around moaning. Now he has a warm, likable laugh like this. So, you see, just in case Edgar might drop in, ladies and gentlemen, always keep Jell-O vanilla pudding on hand. It's brimful of tempting flavor, as smooth as rich cream, and extra good when garnished with nuts, marshmallows, or fruit. My own favorite is Jell-O vanilla pudding with sliced bananas. But served any way at all, it's grand. Order this delightful, ready-prepared dessert and start right away to enjoy the luscious flavor of Jell-O vanilla pudding.
And now, back to Preservation Oak.
Welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm your host, Sean Radcliff, and we're here today with President Bobbi King, Nancy Dierker, and Lucia Mears from the Colorado Genealogical Society located in Denver, Colorado. Guys, let's pick up where we left off. Welcome back.
Thanks for the break. Appreciate it, Sean.
No problem. Before the break, Lucia was sharing a very meaningful story about her family and the work she's done on her family genealogy. But genealogy is not all serious sleuthing. Sometimes it's fun to look at genealogy from a lighter angle. Let's have a little fun here. If you could time travel and meet just one ancestor or even a famous Colorado historical figure, who would it be and why?
Well, I would love to tell you about the Colorado historical figure that I would absolutely love to meet. She's a personal hero of mine. Her name is Clara Brown, and Clara was born into slavery in Virginia in 1800. About in the mid-1850s, she won her freedom after having moved to Kentucky and being parted from her family through sale. When she was freed, she desperately wanted to connect with her family members again. And as hard as she looked, she wasn't able to find them. But she heard that many people were headed to Colorado for the gold rush. So in April 1859, she hired onto a wagon train that was headed to Colorado, and she would serve as their cook. Now, the rumors are that she wasn't allowed to ride in the wagons because she had been a slave, because she was a person of color. So at least for a good share of that time, she probably walked from Kansas into Colorado. When she arrived, she was one of the first Black women pioneers in the Colorado Territory. She settled up in Central City, and she opened the first commercial laundry in the region. It turns out that miners aren't very good about doing their laundry, so she was very successful because they were happy to have someone else do it. Her success really paid off. She was able to invest in mines and real estate. She supported miners, native peoples, and newly freed families. As she continued to search for her family, she would travel back to Kentucky. And when she was unsuccessful, she did manage to find at least 16 formerly enslaved family and friends and pay for their passage on the train from Kentucky to Colorado. So she spent decades in her search for her family, particularly after the Civil War. And unfortunately, some unscrupulous business people took advantage of her and She lost most of her property and most of her resources. But she did get word that her daughter might be living in Council Bluffs, Iowa. So the Pioneer Society, the folks who were members there, kind of pooled their resources and paid for her train trip back to Council Bluffs, where she was reunited with her daughter and her daughter's daughter in 1882. They all moved back here to Denver, and Clara died in Denver in 1885. But before she died, she was honored by the Society of Colorado Pioneers. She's remembered for her generosity, her resilience, and her perseverance. She's buried here in Denver at Riverside Cemetery, and she's also memorialized in stained glass in our state capitol. She's the only woman, and I believe the only person of color, to have a stained glass window in our capitol. So she just amazes me. I think that Clara's story is powerful because it's not a fairy tale. She was exploited. She lost much of what she built, and still she chose generosity and faith. That's what makes remembering her so important.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Clara Brown is really a hero. Does she have a gravestone?
She does. She does. And you can find it on Find a Grave. It also seems to have not infrequent visitors. There are signs that people are leaving memorials to her there on her headstone.
And well, they should. Thank you for sharing that.
This is Bobbi.
Oh, go ahead.
There is a Colorado woman whom I have admired for a long time. Her name was Margaret Brown, and this is not the Margaret Brown of Titanic fame, the Molly Brown, indomitable Molly Brown story. This is a different indomitable Margaret Brown, who was a homesteader up in the mountains of Colorado. Margaret Brown and her husband came from, of all places, Texas. And they traveled to Routt County, Colorado, which is the area of Steamboat Springs, which is ski area. So there are tons of snowfall that happened in Routt County. So Margaret and her husband went from Texas to the mountains of Routt County, Colorado to homestead. They started a homestead, and he died within a few years of their homesteading endeavor. So Margaret was left alone. They had no children, but of course she had the help of her neighbors. But Margaret, she was in her 40s, not a young, sprightly thing anymore, but she persevered. She took advantage of 3 homestead acts, different homestead acts that allowed her to acquire a considerable amount of property there in Routt County. And even though there's a short growing season in Routt County, the grazing and the grasses and the meadows are highly nutritious. She established a sheep raising operation and ranch there with the help of her neighbors. Reading her homestead papers, you read about the fences she had to build, the roads she put into her property, and her lodgings and her stock and livestock. But I just envision her as being alone, essentially, and just having a spirit and strength of will that must have been remarkable. So my Colorado hero is Margaret Brown, homesteader in Routt County, Colorado, which segues me into saying that half of Colorado is arid plains, not mountains. Half of Colorado is high plains country, sagebrush, and cactus. But there were lots of homesteaders who came to Colorado to take advantage of having free tracts of land from the government. But it was a hard go in Colorado. We're not talking Iowa fertile fields here. This is hard scrabble, hard rock, clay, sagebrush country, grazing country. And until irrigation came to be, it was hard to be a farmer rancher in the Colorado area. But homesteaders established families all across Colorado, and their legacies live on through their descendants also.
Thank you for sharing that. People had to be so stalwart, so hardworking back then. Yeah, it was amazing. What amazing people, huh?
Absolutely.
Now, while we're at it, what's one genealogy myth you'd love to bust once and for all?
I'll start with that one. I think that there is a common understanding that immigrants all came in through Ellis Island, where in fact, Ellis Island didn't start processing immigrants until 1892, and they closed in 1954. My family, who immigrated from Europe in the 1800s, came in through New Orleans and then up the Mississippi River and got off in St. Louis. So they never saw Ellis Island. They never saw New York. So I'd like people to get the idea that not all journeys in genealogy start at Ellis Island.
Boy, that's for sure. People came in on the West Coast, the Chinese, many thousands came in. They came in from Canada. They came in from any port city that you can imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have, unfortunately, kind of narrowed it down into thinking that Ellis Island is the answer, and we should all go there in pilgrimage to our ancestors without realizing that our ancestors may not have been there.
Yeah, very good point. Very good. Mythbuster. Way to go.
Bobbi, I think you had a Mythbuster too.
So this is Bobbi. Speaking of Ellis Island, it is, this bugs me to no end. My ancestors came to Ellis Island and the guy there changed their name.
Oh.
No. The legend that immigrants' names were frequently changed at Ellis Island when officials, being unfamiliar with the foreign languages and nationalities, would change the names of immigrants that sounded foreign or ununderstandable. False, false, false.
Oh, okay.
Inspectors and officials never wrote down names. They took the names off the passenger list manifests that they had been given by the captains of the vessels that had arrived into port. So these clerks and officials were looking at names on a list with a line of people in front of them who approached their desks. And there were interpreters all over Ellis Island. Italian language, German language, Norwegian language, Swedish. There were interpreters galore to help these clerks be able to ask questions of the immigrant. And they would ask the questions of the immigrant that were on the passenger list, such as, where did you come from? Where are you going? How much money do you have? And when the immigrant answered those questions properly, they were admitted into the United States. But clerks did not just record names as the people greeted them at their desks. They simply checked off the names on the manifest list. Now, I'm not saying that a name change was never made. Of course, there was a record of a female who in Europe dressed up as a man and gave her name as a man's name on the passenger list when she bought her tickets to come across. And once she came across into Ellis Island, then she disbanded her male wardrobe and revealed that she was actually a female coming into port. And in that case, there was a name change, and it is documented on the passenger list. So there are no records of names being inaccurately recorded at Ellis Island. So no names were changed there by the clerks at Ellis Island. And I equate this to an analogy. If you've ever gone on a cruise, you buy your tickets ahead of time, you submit your name ahead of time, and you submit your identifying information way ahead of time. The same is true of passengers in Europe coming to America. They submitted all their information ahead of time. The ship line created their manifest and passenger lists, checked everybody out when they boarded, just like they do on a cruise here in the United States. And then when the passengers disembarked, they checked off the names of the passengers and verified their identities, just like they do today. So if you think of it that way, you can understand that immigrants coming into ports of America were recorded appropriately. It's just later on that a lot of families changed their names, particularly during the anti-German sentiment years of the wars against Germany, where later on in the documents, men, I'll say men most commonly, changed the surnames of their families. But Ellis Island did a stellar job accepting our immigrants and their names.
Yeah, very good point, Bobbi. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is Lucia, and I can concur with that as well, because my ancestors came over with the surname of Cruzcos, but they intentionally changed it to Allison. Family stories have revealed that they knew of a gentleman with the last name of Allison who had candy stores, and they just took on that name. So it was by choice.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing history. Now, you know, genealogy has been around for a while, and it has progressed amazingly through the 1980s, through the 1990s, through the 2000s, with a lot of stuff changing, especially tools on the web and so on. What's one tool that you can't live without?
This is Lucia, and I would like to answer that question. Right now, currently, artificial intelligence or ChatGPT has been very helpful in kind of formulating my story, because I have so much information. It truly helps me to kind of document and create all that information that I can attach to my family tree.
That's a really good of AI, Lucia. I think that's great. This is Nancy. I have a couple of tools that I like. One is an old school tool, and that's the city directory. I think a lot of people overlook that sometimes or trivialize it, but city directories, if you can get your hands on them, and most libraries have their local city directories, you can learn so much about the people who lived in that community at that time. Because the census only gives you information every 10 years, you can use the city directories to fill in the gaps on those intervening years and not only learn where your ancestors were living, but you can learn whether they owned or rented their property. You can learn who did own the property if they didn't. You can find out their occupation and their employer. So it's an abundance of information, and it never should be regarded as just phone book. And our modern day tools, we do some genetic genealogy work where we're trying to find living, and that can be a real challenge. And so the tool that we love is Been Verified. Been Verified allows you to put in a name or an address, a phone number, or even an email, and it will search public records to bring back what it knows about that individual or that piece of information. That's been very helpful for us in identifying cousins and second cousins. It also gives you relatives or possible relatives to that individual. So that's been really helpful to track the living.
Oh, that's very cool. I haven't heard of that tool before. You just go to the web at Been Verified?
BeenVerified.com. Yes.
Very cool.
They also have an app, so you can put it on your device, and it's really handy. If you have a teenage daughter who's dating, you might also want to look into it because it gives you a lot of background on people.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
I use my genealogy software. It's called the master genealogist. It's not in production anymore, but it is absolutely the repository of every tidbit of genealogy that I have amassed and stored. And it's a robust program. It's no longer in production, but it is certainly living alive and well on my Windows laptop. But it produces output that creates reports and narratives for me that are invaluable for sharing with my relatives. But it's just the repository of everything I've ever done, have thought, stored, surmised, concluded, and recorded. There are several software programs out there. There's Family Tree Maker, there's Roots Magic, there's, Ancestry has its own program, which are available to researchers. But my master genealogist is my master genealogist.
Very cool. You can't get that anymore?
There is a gentleman in Germany who has licenses, and you can download the program from a certain website. So license is available, and you can download the program. But the company, the guy who wrote it, dissolved his company some years ago.
Oh.
Some people think it's a program that's dead in the water and gone, but it's not. It's alive and well, living in Colorado.
Yeah, it lives on because it's a great tool, huh?
Correct.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. So, folks, what's your biggest genealogy pet peeve?
This is Bobbi. People who attribute an attribute that they have to an ancestor, such as, no wonder I love playing the violin, because great-grandfather played the fiddle for his band back in Nebraska. No wonder I'm so good on the violin, which completely discounts ancestors and cultural influences that had an impact on a person today. So that's one of my pet peeves.
Great one. Anyone else would like to share?
I don't know if it's a pet peeve. I mean, it certainly annoys me, but I am very frustrated by the fact that women are so easily lost to time because they weren't allowed to own land, or they weren't recorded if they were married because everything carried their husband's name. And I find that very frustrating. I understand it was the time, but it just sort of gets my hackles up every time I think about it.
Well, and this is Lucia. I would like to kind of piggyback on what Nancy was just talking about, because as I was putting together, what I wanted to talk about today, it kept on dawning on me that, the women in my family, there's no documents on them. And in fact, even in one of those artifacts that I have a receipt where, remember back in the day when, you'd go and you'd buy something with a credit card, and they had the credit card machine and they'd run it through, and then they'd give you like the carbon copy.
Mm-hmm.
And so my grandmother, she signed that as Mrs. Chris Allison. Report cards. I have report cards from my uncles that when she signed, acknowledgement of those report cards, she signed as Mrs. Chris Allison. So it was very important for me to, share that her name was Mary Allison and she was married to Chris Allison.
Right.
And this is Bobbi. I find in so many newspaper accounts, women are referred to as Mrs. John Jones, Mrs. William Smith, not even given their given name first, such as Mrs. Mary Smith.
Right.
And it's hard sometimes to track a specific woman because of such common usage of addressing her Mrs. William Smith by her husband's name.
I can share that the first time I married was in 1981. And shortly after my wedding, I got a piece of mail from my mother, and it was addressed to Mrs. and my husband's name. And I sent it back to make a point to my mother that, no, that's not my name. And please don't ever refer to me that way. But she had always used my father's name in signing everything.
Thank you for sharing your pet peeves. It's very interesting. Now, what's the most surprising genealogical record or story or information you've ever discovered in your research?
Well, Sean, this is Nancy. I have one that I'm particularly proud of, not because I worked really hard to uncover the truth, but because it was a bit of a mystery that required travel to solve. My maternal grandparents were married in 1909, and their first home was my grandfather's homestead just outside of Guyman, Oklahoma. We talked a little bit about farming in Colorado and how that was pretty rough. Well, I think everybody knows it wasn't much better in Oklahoma. In fact, probably worse. But they were there in 1909. In 1911, they had their first child. And my grandmother's journal has this entry. It says, "Our first sorrow came to us when our first baby, a boy, was born prematurely on January 18th, 1911, and lived only 5 hours. We buried him at Optima, 16 miles from us, where they built a Lutheran church and had acquired a plot for the cemetery. This cemetery was later moved for some reason after we lived here in Flagler. So by the time they'd moved to Colorado, then shortly after that, the cemetery was moved and they moved the grave." She goes on to say, "Theo, my grandfather, made a homemade stone of cement before we left our claim, and I engraved the name Dierker and date on it. Baby had no name." When I read that in my grandmother's journal just last year, I've been reading her journal for years, looking at little tidbits, but I read that and I thought, I wonder if I can find that grave. And so I put on my researcher hat and located the only Lutheran cemetery in Optima, Oklahoma, and started searching there. And I found this little cemetery. It is on Find a Grave, and it had only 5 memorials in it, and they were all photographed. I looked at the picture, and there was the picture of baby son of Theo Dierker, and wife, again with the women. So my daughter and I packed up the car, and we headed out to Oklahoma. This cemetery is not really marked as a cemetery. It might be officially a cemetery on the property records, but it's really 5 headstones out in the middle of an agricultural field. So it took us a bit to locate where the graves were, but we were able to find that very headstone of my uncle, my father's brother, who failed to survive. It is in the middle of nowhere, but it's holding up very well. It's been over 100 years, and I don't see any reason that that headstone can't stand for another 100 years. Made with my grandfather's hands and my grandmother's markings.
Wow, what a beautiful story. That had to be a wonderful trip.
It was. It was very gratifying. We came back first wanting to save the grave, but we were quickly told there's nothing to move other than the headstone. A premature baby 100 years ago is not going to have any remains left after this long. But then we debated about what to do with the headstone, because I felt very protective of it. I wanted to, much like Lucia's bar stool, I wanted to collect it and protect it and make sure that it got the care it deserved. But after a bit, I thought, who am I? My grandparents have lots of grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren. Who am I to say it's better with me than where it is, right where they left it in Oklahoma? I do think that I'm probably the first family member to have visited that site in over 100 years. And that made it very special.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very cool. Fantastic story. Thank you for sharing that. Would anyone else like to share one?
So this is Bobbi. My 3 lines of my family came from the Polish, what is now Poland, Polish territories. And so I always knew in the back of my mind that during the World Wars, there were probably distant cousins of mine, having grown up in Germany, who served in the German armies, which hurt and harmed my Polish cousins on the other side of the border. And I have since documented German military service cousins who served in the armies. One particular man I've researched, he became a German U-boat service and, in fact, was killed in his submarine. But I think about how hard the submarine service must have been in those early years and what terrible conditions he underwent. And in fact, he was killed in his U-boat, an offense. But I've been to Poland and I've met my Polish cousins personally, shook hands, hugged, partied with. So knowing that there were German cousins who harmed Polish cousins, and they did harm them, brings home the loss and the pain that happens in war, cousins against cousins. There are probably Civil War descendants who realize their families fought North against South, but it just made loss personal to me now that I know Polish cousins and the sufferings they suffered under the World Wars.
Well, that was great. Thank you very much for sharing that. I'm sorry to interrupt Bobbi, Nancy, and Lucia, but it's time for us to take a break for a few minutes.
Thank you, and it's nice to step outside for a few minutes. See you soon.
Listeners, we'll be right back after these important messages about making a well-deserved donation to the Colorado Genealogical Society.
Since 1924, the Colorado Genealogical Society, based in Denver, has been dedicated to preserving history, uncovering family stories, and guiding generations in their search for identity and heritage. As one of the state's oldest and most respected genealogical organizations, CGS provides educational programs, expert speakers, workshops, newsletters, and exclusive research resources that bring family history to life. But none of this important work can continue without the generosity of donors like you. Your donation helps maintain vital projects, preserve fragile historical records, and expand access to databases and educational resources that support genealogists at every level, from beginners to professionals. Every contribution, no matter the size, ensures that family stories are not lost to time, but instead shared and remembered for generations to come.
By supporting the Colorado Genealogical Society, you're not just funding research tools and programs, you're helping families connect with their ancestors, uncover their roots, and celebrate the stories that shape their lives. Please consider making a gift today. You can donate by writing to P.O. Box 9218, Denver, Colorado 80209, or by contacting the Society at cgscontact@cogensoc.us.
The Colorado Genealogical Society, preserving the past, inspiring the future.
The crowning pleasure of the table with meals, of course, is your coffee. Besides that, if you've chosen well, coffee by itself can be an occasion. When you've chosen Chase and Sanborn coffee, every cup is an occasion. Ample reason in itself to take a few moments mid-morning or mid-afternoon to enjoy its superb flavor. What's more, Hand in hand with the extra flavor of Chase and Sanborn coffee comes the boost that helps you get things done. So, on every count, this longtime favorite goes on winning new friends every day. In the past year, more people changed to Chase and Sanborn coffee than to any other kind on the market. That's the biggest swing in coffee history, a swing to finer flavor. Take advantage of this opportunity. Get all the flavor you're entitled to. Get the product of 80 years of experience blending the choice coffees of the world. That's the secret of Chase and Sanborn flavor, the secret of your satisfaction. Always ask your grocer for Chase and Sanborn coffee.
This is Sharon Jett, the director of the Cedar Springs Historical Museum, a very spooky Halloween. Boo from Cedar Springs, Michigan.
Hello, I'm Liz Kirstens, executive director at the Plymouth Historical Museum. Join us for some hair-raising historical tales this Halloween on Preservation Oaks with Sean Radcliff.
This is Catherine Seiner, the Executive Director of the Oswego Heritage Council, a very spooky Halloween boo from Lake Oswego, Oregon.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
Welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm your host, Sean Radcliff. We're here today with President Bobbi King, Nancy Dierker, and Lucia Mears from the Colorado Genealogical Society located in Denver, Colorado. Let's pick up where we left off, folks. I'm learning a lot. Thank you and welcome back.
Great to be back.
Now, folks, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the practical side of what CGS offers. What kinds of workshops, special interest groups, or programs do you offer for both beginners and seasoned researchers?
Well, this is Bobbi. I'll start out. If a researcher goes to our website, there are so many links under the Resources tab. We have links to local archives and repositories, including the state archives and their collections, local libraries and their collections for researchers to look at and think about exploring for their own studies. We have links to county clerk offices for researchers to send inquiries to about vital records that are contained within those counties. We have links to databases of early Colorado marriages, divorces, and obituaries. We have links to cemeteries, most notably Riverside Cemetery, which might be Denver's oldest cemetery. It used to be the city cemetery and contains historic graves such as Augusta Tabor, some of the governors, and is still in use today. We have links to Fort Logan National Cemetery, which is in the Denver area, which researchers may search. We have links to, the Colorado Historic Newspapers. What a resource. The Colorado State Library has digitized over 900 newspapers from 1859 to 2025, millions of pages, and they have a very nice search engine. And here in Colorado, with so many mining towns, sometimes a newspaper existed in a mining town for like 2 months or 5 issues. There are lots of newspapers that were short-lived, and fortunately, the Colorado State Library has digitized a lot of those newspapers. We have links to other Colorado societies and groups for further searching for researchers. And we have links to message boards. And we have a nice FAQ section for general information about doing Colorado research. All this on our website.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Bobbi.
This is Nancy. We also do some consistent workshops or programs. We offer beginning genealogy at no cost to anyone, members, non-members. We offer that as a session once a month on Saturday mornings, and everyone is welcome, taught by one of our finest genealogists, who also runs a group called Right Now. That's WRITE, which is a free writing group for family historians. Throughout the school year, essentially, they work their way through from the introduction to the index, putting together individually their books and sharing with each other, getting peer review, those kinds of things. And then many of them actually come to publish those books. I think last year in the spring, we had 6 different books that were published by our family historians who were part of Right Now.
Oh, cool.
We have a family tree maker work group that meets regularly where they just share what they're learning about the software or tips and tricks, or if they're struggling. So that helps everyone in the group to master that particular software. We have social lunches twice a month, once virtually and once in person. We have a series that we call Tech on Tuesdays, one Tuesday evening a month. We cover technology topics like AI, like new software tools, things a little bit beyond the standard that you would come across, like Ancestry.com or Family Search. But we have also talked about them, particularly when they're bringing up new features, so that we try to keep our audience ahead of the curve. And finally, we are in the process of developing a DNA series. We have a couple of people in our organization who regularly do investigative genetic genealogy and do work with adoptees to help them identify their birth parents. So they're starting to present sessions to help everyone else who's new to the whole DNA idea. They might have taken a test and gotten results, but now what? What do we do? And so we're developing that so that people can, once again, kind of keep up, because technology and science are changing faster than any one of us could keep up with.
Yeah.
So Colorado Genealogical Society is trying very hard to provide at least a basic set of information so that people have that groundwork to build on, a good foundation.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure everybody appreciates it. You folks are doing a great job. I really mean that. I've run into so many genealogical societies across the country that are overwhelmed by the technology. And many of them are really hard to contact or hunkered down, it would appear. And you folks are out there helping your community. That's great to see.
I couldn't agree more. We're trying to capitalize on the next generation because genealogy societies tend to attract those folks who are retired and now have time to really get into their family history. They may not be the most tech savvy out there. And so we're really capitalizing on those folks in our society who are that younger generation. They may still both have jobs, full-time jobs, but they get the new technology, they get the DNA stuff, and are happy to share it with our other folks.
Yeah, it won't be long. You'll just be able to release an AI agent in the background that's going to do all the family research for you.
Well, if they can do the family research for us, they ought to be able to do our day jobs too.
Well, that's a good point. Now, for listeners outside Colorado, how can they take advantage of what CGS has to offer?
So this is Lucia. So, we are very active on our Facebook page, but first, these programs are posted to our website and it's very easy to register for them. But we do actively post them also on Facebook. So, if somebody was outside of Colorado and they wanted to participate in one of our virtual sessions, they could typically do that. Also, if you're a member of CGS and we record some of those programs, such as the Tech on Tuesdays, you can listen to those for a short period of time through the website as well. And we try to remind just the folks, both society members as well as non-society members, that those tools are available to them.
Fantastic. I'm glad CGS is doing a lot to support researchers today across the world, but I also know you have your eyes on the future, and that's really good. Listeners, once again, I'd like to provide everybody with the contact information for the Colorado Genealogical Society. Their website is cogensoc.us. Their mailing address is P.O. Box 9218, Denver, Colorado, 80209. You can email them at cgscontact@cogensoc.us, and you can find them on Facebook at Colorado Genealogical Society. Folks, as we look down the road, what excites you most about the future of genealogy, whether it's DNA, digitization, or even new technologies like AI?
This is Nancy. And it's a great question, Sean, because there's so much coming at us so fast. I have to say that I appreciate the advancements in DNA and the ability to match family members based on the amount of DNA that they have in common. I'm very excited about that for the impact it can have on adoptees who would just like some answers about where they come from. I think that's amazing, and I think it's going to get easier and easier for them. It doesn't come without its problems, though, because you can identify someone as a birth parent, but you can't make them talk to their child.
Right.
You can't make the relationship happen, but you can share the information. I have a particular instance where we worked to help my nephew, who adopted into our family, find his birth parents. His leading match was very high, and we thought, oh, this will be easy. But when we reached out to that individual, it turns out he was adopted too, and he knew nothing about his family. So we were able to track down my nephew's birth parents and provide him with that information. We then went back to this gentleman and said, now that we've built a tree for this family, perhaps we can help you identify your birth parents. And he was happy to have our help. What we found out in the end is very interesting. My nephew's birth mother was the descendant of two adoptees, which made for a really tough search, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But this other gentleman, it turns out, was my nephew's birth mother's half brother. In other words, her mother had been in exactly the same situation she had been in at 14, having a baby, giving it up for adoption back in the 1930s, and then seeing her own daughter repeat that history and not tell anyone. It was fascinating, and we would never have known any of that without the benefit of DNA testing. Another thing that we're finding really helpful is social media, because so many people are willing to post out to the world, hey, this is my mom's 50th birthday, or remembering my mom on the 5th anniversary of her death. Well, if you look at that individual, you then realize, so you know when their mother was born, you know when they died, and you can start making connections just from the passing comments that people are making on social media. It's not an attempt to violate their privacy in any way,
Right.
but it's just a conversational way, if you will, to put some of the pieces together and speed things along, particularly when you're looking for the living.
And this is Lucia. So I would like to talk a little bit about the digitization piece of it and how important, that is, based on the fact that I have, totes full of articles and documents. And, I think it's just so important that it's digitized so that, younger generations can then look into that and see and hopefully someday also be as passionate about it as I am.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Now, folks, what notable events or exhibits are on the horizon that the community should look forward to?
Well, this is Bobbi, and I'm greatly looking forward to the holiday party in December. It's an opportunity for board members and people who volunteer in our society whose names go into newsletters and on our website. The holiday party will give members a chance to meet us and talk to us and see us. And we will have an opportunity to meet them and see them and talk to them, independent of a Zoom platform.
I'd also like to mention that I'm really looking forward to the events that will be taking place next year for our 250th anniversary of the United States.
Good point.
I think a lot of organizations are planning something special, and we are still in the formulative stages, but I'm very excited to see what kind of events and exhibits might pop up around our community or around the country.
Yeah, wonderful milestone next year. That's going to be great. Now, how is CGS working to inspire the next generation of genealogists in Colorado?
Well, Sean, this is Nancy. I have just recently taken on a project to work with a 6th grade class here in Denver. Their model is tied into expeditionary learning, so they're very hands-on. And I've met with their English and sociology teacher and their science and math teacher to talk about how we could fold genealogy into their program this year. I'm really excited about getting these kids excited about what's possible to learn about your ancestors. And I'm hoping that out of that, we'll be able to develop a curriculum for kids, just like we have our beginning genealogy class for anyone, any age. I would love to see us have a series that's designed specifically for younger folks to get into it, whether they're still in school or college age or even beyond, to just spark their interest.
I wonder if there's a young person membership at Ancestry. That would be interesting.
That would be very interesting.
Yeah.
I'll be pointing out that the Denver Public Library has a membership, so you can access Ancestry there, and encourage them to work on Family Search, which is free, so that depending on their level of interest in what they want to do, at a minimum, I'm hoping that many of them will take the opportunity to build a profile on Family Search.
Yeah.
So that they put their place on the one family tree.
That's beautiful. Good work, guys.
And this is Lucia, and I would like to also add, social media is such a great place that's where the younger generation lives, right? So the things like what Nancy's doing with the 6th graders, we can share that on our Facebook page so that other people see that and share it with their younger generations and family members to hopefully get them a little bit more inspired. I think the struggle with the younger generations is that they're busy. They have kids, they have this, they have that, they have, it's go, go, go from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep. But I think if we keep it fresh and constantly remind them, it might inspire them.
Yeah, fantastic. Good comments. Thanks, everybody. Now, what needs or opportunities does the society have that our listeners could help with, whether volunteering, donating, or joining the society?
This is Bobbi, and of course, I always need help. I have what I call small jobs, medium jobs, and big jobs. Among small jobs, I'd love it if volunteers would offer to manage a registration desk at a meeting. One-time thing in the morning, done. We have one young lady in our organization who loves to wear costumes. She dressed up as Jane Eyre for our writer's workshop last year. So she manages the registration tables at some of our in-person events. I have a medium job, such as I'd love someone to be a program assistant and help me plan programs, schedule programs, and solicit speakers. And there are some big jobs I'd love to have assistance with. Our group could use someone to help manage the membership database, be an assistant membership chair. That's a fairly major job. I'd love someone to assist the treasurer in his duties throughout the year. So there are opportunities, large and small, and we welcome all.
We welcome anyone and everyone to join the Colorado Genealogical Society. Our membership rate is very low, but that funds all of our programs. And so having new members also generates more revenue. And in addition to that, we're also always open to donations. The donation button is on our website at cogensoc.us.
Very good.
There's a button up in the top right-hand corner you can click on just to make a donation to support our work. That allows us to pay for some of our more expensive presentations and allows us to build our base to continue the work that we're doing. So those options are always available for anyone.
Fantastic. Did you mention membership levels or how much a membership is?
Right now, we have 2 membership levels. We have an individual membership, which is only $25 a year, which, as a fairly new member, I am stunned by that. This is the best deal ever, ever. For $25 one time, you get 12 months worth of programming, access. You get access to all of our prior publications. It's a great deal. We also have a family membership, which is good for 2 individuals in the same household for slightly more. And if you want to have a printed copy of our quarterly journal, then there is a cost for that. But otherwise, we try to keep it pretty simple.
Yep, fantastic. Now, what kinds of interesting books has your society published?
Well, this is Bobbi, and I'm very glad you asked this question. I can commemorate and celebrate a book that CGS published in 1981, been a few years, but a legacy book, a landmark publication. The book is called Colorado Families, A Territorial Heritage. The project began in 1974 by Shirley Sheets, who was one of our CGS presidents and a DPL librarian, and Lois Ducharme, recognized as remarkable book editors, project managers, and compilers who put together this over 700-page book, which highlights 135 Colorado pioneer families, has over 500 Colorado family photos. But this book is a compilation of Colorado pioneer families. As you know, Colorado was a territory before it was a state. Colorado Families is the crown jewel of CGS publications that took 7 years to complete, took much longer, I think, than they originally planned. The quarterly editor, Cheryl Bain, published notices in Colorado newspapers soliciting pioneer family stories and genealogies, and the response was overwhelming. Now, this was an era before the widespread use of computers, word processors, software editing. This was an era of a lot of cutting with scissors and pasting with glue a manuscript that would become print ready for publication. Oh, yeah. So these editors and volunteers, it was a huge labor-intensive project, which they completed in 1981 when the book was published. The book is no longer in print being published. I have found this book in every Colorado genealogical library I've looked in. I find the book at Family Search. I find the book at the New York Public Library, at the Clayton Library in Texas. I have found this book readily available in any genealogical library I've looked at. We have recently put up an index on our webpage of all the family names that are listed inside this book. So persons can go to that Colorado Families Index and see if a family name is there, and then they can go to a library or digital source and look at the book. Okay. But this is one of our crowning achievements.
No kidding. What great work you guys are doing. Wow. Just making the index available is fantastic.
Agreed. Much credit to our quarterly editor for doing that.
Guys, what kind of things are available to do on your society's website?
Well, first and foremost, you can become a member of the Colorado Genealogical Society. We offer PayPal, so you can do it right online. It's very easy, and that gets your benefits starting right away. If you are a member, you can access all of our past publications, and there are a lot since we've been around over 100 years. And that's a huge boom. You can also get videos of presentations that have been done in the last month or so in the event that you missed it, which is a real benefit to being a member. You can search historical records like the pioneer list that Bobbi just talked about. That index is complete and just a click away on our website. And in terms of other things that we do besides our website, Lucia mentioned that we are also on social media. Mm-hmm. Lucia, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we post the events that we have going on, which a large amount of those events are free to the general public, not just members. But I also post engaging content. So for instance, the first day of autumn, I posted some suggestions on, now that the weather is cooling down, what can we do to occupy our time or to continue our research? So those sort of things. I make a good conscious effort to recognize past members, either through their birthdays or there's a Birdie Award. We just gave that award to one of our genealogists, Carol Darrow, for her work in genealogy this last year. So it's a variety of things that we do. I try to keep fresh and current and forward thinking so that members keep coming back and looking at the Facebook page and sharing it with their family and friends.
Wow, cool. Wow.
This is Bobbi. Birdie Holtzclaw, her real name was Roberta, same as mine. But Birdie was a much beloved genealogist in Colorado. She was one of the founders of the Computer Interest Group, which was a major endeavor, special interest group of CGS, which had impacts on technological genealogy world. Birdie was one of the founders of the Computer Interest Group. She was a programmer. Her husband was an IBM computer programmer. And they founded and encouraged, they were far-reaching genealogists into computer genealogy when it was starting up in the 1980s. So we have the Birdie Monk Holtzclaw Award, which is given annually in memory of her work. But the Computer Interest Group was a major special interest group. The founders and the early members of that group came out of the Boulder area. And in the 80s, Boulder had its heyday in the computer world. IBM had major headquarters there. I think Hewlett-Packard was there. And there were software developers and engineers and programmers who were also genealogists. And they came together and started writing their own softwares and reviewing the softwares that were out there. One major accomplishment of this group, they worked on the GEDCOM idea.
Oh, okay.
A GEDCOM file is a file that translates genealogical data between one software program and another. For example, if I upload my family tree to Ancestry, I need to create a GEDCOM file that Ancestry can read that's coming out of my master genealogist program. The computer interest group, computer genealogists, were instrumental in developing GEDCOM and contributing to its development nationally within the national committees. So Bertie was a major computer genealogist, significant and much beloved in our group and nationally. And so that's the referral to the Bertie Award given in her memory.
Fantastic. Thank you for the information, Bobbi. All right, now Colorado Genealogical Society, Bobbi, Nancy, Lucia, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. It's been enlightening to hear all that you and your organization do for the community and your members. You're just a top-tier genealogical society. I appreciate you being here. It's been a pleasure, and I'm so glad we had a chance to connect.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Sean. Yes, I'm so happy to showcase our society and our group. And Nancy and Lucia have been wonderful companions in putting this together.
Thank you. And with that, we'll end our time with our guests, Bobbi King, Nancy Dierker, and Lucia Mears. Listeners, please stay tuned for my comments and wrap-up, which is coming up next. Hey, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our guests today from the Colorado Genealogical Society for sharing their time, their expertise, and their stories. It's been a pleasure to explore the rich tapestry of genealogy with such wonderful people. It's clear that genealogy isn't just about names and dates. It's about connecting to the human story, to the people who came before us, and to the communities that preserve those memories. Genealogy is a field in constant evolution, driven by digitization of records and the transformative power of DNA and AI technology. However, its fundamental purpose remains unchanged: to connect individuals to their ancestors and provide a profound sense of belonging. The research and partnership work of the Colorado Genealogical Society, especially its collaboration with the Denver Public Library, contributes to a legacy that transcends its own membership. By fostering an open, public-facing repository of historical information, the CGS ensures that these stories are not lost, but are instead accessible to anyone with a curious spirit. On this episode, I've had the privilege of meeting three true stars in the genealogy world: President Bobbi King, Nancy Dierker, and Lucia Mears, each a powerhouse of experience, vision, and dedication, who helped make the Colorado Genealogical Society, founded back in 1924, one of the preeminent genealogical societies in our nation. Together, they've taken us on a journey through time, from those first gatherings in members' living rooms to today's thriving statewide network that continues to inspire, educate, and serve. Lucia Mears touched our hearts with the incredible saga of her Greek immigrant ancestors. The Allison family, entrepreneurs, soldiers, and dreamers who helped sweeten Denver's history, one candy shop at a time. Nancy Dierker shared the moving discovery of her grandparents' lost child's gravesite in rural Oklahoma, proof that love and remembrance can bridge more than a century. And President Bobbi King showed us the resilience of the Colorado homesteaders, the courage of women like Margaret Brown, who faced the harsh western plains with grit and grace, and the importance of keeping these stories alive for the next generation. We learned how CGS provides free beginning genealogy workshops, open to everyone, monthly Tech on Tuesday sessions exploring the newest tools, including AI and DNA research, and how their members publish original books like Colorado Families, A Territorial Heritage, a 700-page landmark documenting more than 100 pioneer families. We learned that CGS is leading the way in outreach, offering hybrid meetings, social lunches, and writing groups that nurture both new researchers and lifelong professionals. And perhaps most inspiring, we heard about their work with young people, a new partnership bringing genealogy into a Denver 6th grade classroom, introducing students to family history as living history, and lighting the spark that will keep this noble discipline alive for decades to come. That, my friends, is what maturity of outreach looks like, meeting people where they are, whether in classrooms, libraries, or social media, and helping them discover who they are by connecting them to where they came from. Our guests also spoke passionately about the need for volunteers. As Bobbi stated, there are small jobs, medium jobs, and big jobs, waiting for anyone who wants to get involved. Everything from helping with registration at events to assisting with membership management, programming, and treasurer support. And of course, they welcome donations to sustain the Society's many free programs, educational efforts, and public resources. As Nancy pointed out, individual membership is only $25 per year, and family membership only $30 per year, a modest sum that opens the door to 12 months of programs, access to past publications, and a community of friends who share your passion for family history. So if you've been inspired by what you heard today, take the next step. Become a member, volunteer, and donate. Join the Colorado Genealogical Society and be part of this century-long legacy of discovery and preservation. When you support CGS, you're helping to keep Colorado's stories, and maybe your own, alive for generations to come. To President Bobbi King, Nancy Dierker, and Lucia Mears, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your humor, and your deeply personal stories with us. You embody everything that makes the genealogy community such a force for good in preserving America's collective memory. As we've discussed, the Denver Public Library, with the help of the CGS, has become one of the top 10 genealogy libraries in our country. This partnership has not only enriched the lives of genealogists, but has also made history accessible to a broader audience, encouraging more people to delve into their own family histories. And now, this for Halloween.
Denver's story begins not in stone and steel, but in gold. In 1858, prospectors staked their claims along Cherry Creek. Two rival camps, Auraria and Denver City, rose from the dust. By 1860, they merged, and by 1861, in the midst of our Civil War, Denver stood as an incorporated city. But the true treasure of Denver was never its gold. It was its memory, and memory, once gathered, has a power all its own. While mines ran dry, Denver and Colorado endured, and with each generation came stories, names, and records that stitched the city's identity into the very fabric of Colorado.
By 1910,
The Denver Public Library began to weave this memory into something extraordinary. What started as shelves of books and files grew into a cathedral of ancestry, and something stranger still. Archivists whispered of vaults where ledgers glowed faintly with the names of pioneers, and cabinets groaned with fragile papers rescued from time's hungry flames. Librarians seemed touched by otherworldly purpose, guardians of forgotten kin, protectors of ancestral secrets. They did not merely catalog the past, they preserved its magic. And some say, the library hides more than shelves. Doors locked for decades lead not to offices, but to tunnels. Hidden tunnels. A labyrinth beneath the city. Here lie ancient artifacts and enchanted books. Maps that redraw themselves. Ledgers that whisper when touched. Records so ancient they seem to breathe in the dark.
Then, in 1924, the Colorado Genealogical Society was born. Many of its founders had once walked the vaults as librarians. But when they stepped beyond the library's gates, they transformed. They became wardens, keepers of Colorado's sacred memory. Wizards and witches of preservation, sworn to shield the past from the gnawing teeth of time. With the library as the heart and the society as its spirit, they forged an unbreakable bond, two halves of the same spell, cast across a century to ensure that no Colorado name would vanish into shadow. Even now, as Halloween approaches and the veil grows thin, one can faintly hear them. Lanterns in hand, cloaked in silence, they wander the labyrinth beneath the library. They cast protective incantations over brittle manuscripts. They murmur the names of ancestors so none may be forgotten. And if you listen closely, perhaps you will hear them whispering your name.
Yet this grand library and genealogical society are not meant to terrify. They're meant to summon. On Halloween, when the world grows quiet and the veil thins, the genealogy collection comes alive. Footsteps echo even when you stand alone. Cold breezes brush past, carrying the scents of wood smoke, lilacs, or pipe tobacco, ghostly traces of lives long gone. The Denver Public Library's genealogy archives are not merely records of the dead. They are portals. They are beacons. They are the ancestors reaching out, guided by the Colorado Genealogical Society, reminding us that history is not past. It is guiding us, waiting for us to listen.
Colorado may once have been founded on mining, but its truest riches lie here, in the vaults, in the tunnels, in the labyrinth of memory, guarded still by those who dare to call themselves keepers of Colorado's past.
All right, I hope you liked that. Our podcast serves as a conduit for stories of perseverance, surprise, and human connection, illustrating that the greatest discoveries in genealogy are not just found in the records themselves, but in the narratives and what they reveal about who we are and where we come from. As always, you can find this episode along with past programs on preservationoaks.podbean.com and anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. If you enjoyed today's show, please like, comment, follow, or subscribe. Every bit of support helps us keep these important stories alive. Whether you're a seasoned genealogist or just beginning, the Colorado Genealogical Society is here to guide you. So keep digging, keep exploring, and never stop asking, who am I? All right, one last time, I'd like to provide listeners with the contact information for the Colorado Genealogical Society. You can find them on their website at cogensoc.us. That's COGENSOC.us. Their mailing address is P.O. Box 9218, Denver, Colorado 80209. You can email them at cgscontact@cogensoc.us. And their Facebook is Colorado Genealogical Society. If questions occur to you and you'd like more information, please connect with the Colorado Genealogical Society via the contact information provided. If you're a listener in the area the organization serves, or you're a listener researching ancestors in the community the organization serves and you're not already a member, please consider joining and supporting them. I hope this information helps the audience understand how valuable the Colorado Genealogical Society is to the community and what kinds of excellent services they have to offer to their members and the public. The Colorado Genealogical Society is truly one of our nation's preservation oaks. All right, that's a wrap for this episode. Music used today is from Cymbalbird, Steel Sound, Rems Tunes, Music Dog, Golden Sound, Gentle Jammers, Score Wizards, Luca Francini, and Scott Holmes. Hey, this is Sean Radcliff. See you all next time on Preservation Oaks. And until then, keep on giving and keep on living the good life.
MicroStream Radio is a registered trademark. You can visit at www.microstreamradio.com. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted by MicroStream Radio. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, reproduced, copied, or used anywhere without the written permission of MicroStream Radio. Preservation Oaks starring Sean Radcliff originates in Salt Lake City, Utah. Be sure to join us for our next episode on your favorite podcast platform. This is Thaddeus Dillon speaking. Preservation Oaks has come to you through the worldwide podcast platform Podbean, and our home is preservationoaks.podbean.com. Hopefully you found today's episode useful, informative, and thought-provoking. If so, please like, follow, comment, and/or subscribe. Remember that being free means being free to be curious, and that historical and genealogical societies and museums allow us to discover the past, be free to explore, where curiosity opens every door. Thanks to everyone for listening. Stay cozy, curious, and keep exploring the incredible stories that shape our world. Remember to cherish and support the preservation of history in your own communities. The content of this program is provided for educational and informational purposes only. Some material included in this program may be copyrighted by third parties. However, under Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act, the doctrine of fair use allows the limited use of copyrighted material without requiring permission from the rights holders when used for purposes such as education, criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. These uses are legally permitted even if they might otherwise constitute infringement. If you wish to use copyrighted material from this program for purposes beyond fair use, you must obtain permission from the copyright owner. If you believe your copyrighted material has been used in this program in a way that does not qualify as fair use, please contact us at preservationoaks@gmail.com. Thank you.